Hey, everybody. This is Jeremy Wolf of the Wolf Group at Danbury Realtors. Thank you so much for tuning in wherever you may be and however you're listening. I'm really excited and honored to be joined today by Christy Austin from EA Lewis and Associates, experts in the field of business coaching. Christy, thank you so much for coming in today.
Jeremy, thank you so much for having me. I am loving this new venture. This is an amazing studio.
I know. We're from the Capital Home Loans recording studio. Who knew that somebody so experienced in home loans was going to have such an amazing studio for us to record this in, right?
Right. This is awesome. I love it.
I know. It's great. It's high tech. I think I finally have figured out how to work everything, and the sound is great. So we're very fortunate and thankful for those at Capital Home Loans that let us use this. So I'm really excited to have you here. We've known each other for, a couple years now through some other networking groups. And I always am so amazed and impressed by what you do and how you do it. So to be able to have you on today and learn a little bit more about EA Lewis and you and business coaching and how it can benefit people, I think is going to be a great podcast. So I'm excited to hear. So why don't we start out by you telling us a little bit about you, your background, and how you really got into business coaching?
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
So since about 2008, I actually was a cognitive behavioral therapist. So I was in a little bit of a different field. And interesting, I often say to people that I didn't look for coaching. Coaching actually found me. And so that's really my story with that. I was a CBT therapist, and I also co-founded a nationwide nonprofit with my brother in 2009, which I helped direct and lead. And interesting, as I would do staff developments with my own staff at this 501c3, which I love to do. I love to do staff developments and coaching and all the things. Business owners started asking me to come to their business and do staff developments and team building and all the things. And so I was like, sure, why not? Let's do it, And so when I say that business coaching found me, like it really did. I never went looking for it. People just started asking me to do it. And so I have loved it. I'm super passionate about helping people get their business to the next level. So I love it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, business coaching, it seems like it's kind of like real estate. Most people don't go into college or whatever thinking, I'm going to be a real estate agent. It's just something you kind of evolve into being. And business coaching, I'm assuming that, you're excelling in other areas. And then, like you said, people are like, wow, it's amazing what this person's doing. Can they help me with my business? And then I know that your team at EA Lewis, it seems like you guys all have like different backgrounds and different expertises, and you come together and it makes an amazing team. So that's cool.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, what types of things can a business coach help businesses focus on or get better at, or what kind of obstacles can you help them overcome?
Yeah, well, first of all, my whole goal with business coaching is that no leader or business owner feels alone. And I think that's a big part of my story, having my own business and also as the director of a nonprofit, is I literally wish I had a business coach. I didn't even know that was a thing back then. But feeling alone and needing that person to go like, okay, I am stuck in smack dab in the middle of the forest and I can't see the trees, more or less see a way out of the trees. And so to have that other person to be able to come and to bring some skills and to bring that fresh perspective, right? And so my heart is always to take every business or nonprofit, not for business, and get them to the next level. And so that can look a lot of different ways, but I'm always willing to help serve and assess in that. So sometimes people are starting their business and they need their why statement. They need their mission and vision and messaging and tagline. And I love to do content creation, especially with entrepreneurs, because they're so fiery, right? They're so new and ready to go. And so I love that. I work with entrepreneurs getting off the ground all the way up to large businesses where I go in and do team trainings for emotional intelligence, which really goes along a lot with my background as a CBT therapist. And so bringing a team together is my passion, and getting them to work like cogs on a wheel and in harmony and not dissonance, right? So, the dissonance where we're like at each other and conflict and all of that. So it's amazing to me that when a team comes together, you see increased productivity and revenue, and culture piece is so big. We sometimes underestimate that, right?
Sure. Well, one of the things I hear that you talk about a lot, and it's a pretty common word in the business world, is emotional intelligence. So for those maybe that don't have a true understanding of exactly what emotional intelligence means, or what the definition is, or how it affects a business, can you get into that for us a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. So emotional intelligence, it's also called EQ, and it's where we get IQ from, intelligence quotient. And so really what they found, what scientists have found over the years, is emotional intelligence is actually more significant even than IQ in a lot of ways. So what is emotional intelligence? Well, emotional intelligence always starts with awareness. And so I am aware of how my presence affects others, and I'm also aware of how to be able to coordinate that if that other person is affected by me or I'm affected by them. So it always starts with self-awareness. And one of my favorite statistics that literally blew my mind, no pun intended, as a mindset coach, right?
Yeah.
But 1 in 10 people are actually self-aware. So scientists did this poll, and they asked all of these people, do you think that you're emotionally intelligent? Which you would answer,
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm emotionally intelligent. And so interestingly, statistically, 9 out of 10 people think that they're self-aware. When they did assessments and tests, they found out 1 out of 10 people actually are self-aware. And so when you come into a team, if I'm not aware of how my words and my tone of voice and my actions are really affecting other people, that team is going to collide and fall apart. And if we're not working together as a team, again, we see this across the board in productivity and culture and all of the things. So it affects the bottom line hugely. And there's a lot of great stats on that as well.
Well, I have to think that as somebody that's leading people, whether you're a manager, you're a business owner, what you are, if you're leading a group, you have to have that, right? Like, you have to have self-awareness. And if you don't, I can't imagine the negative impact that has on the people that you're leading, because you may think you're doing an amazing job, but you don't understand how you're coming across to people, or how you're delivering the message, or how you're squashing their ideas that maybe they're really excited about, and they bring it to you, and you kind of don't even realize how you're coming off, and you're diminishing those thoughts that people have.
Yes. And I'm with you, like, in theory, definitely. But sadly, we all know leaders that do squash things.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Should we mention names, or just
No, we don't have to mention any names today, but I think everybody's been in that scenario where you're like, man, I was really excited about this, or they work for an organization that they don't feel heard, or they don't feel like, they have these great ideas that are just, kind of pushed to the side. And I think that is so important. And I think if you as a business coach are able to help leaders understand that has to have a huge impact on their business, right? The bottom line of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that is culture. Business owners set the culture first and foremost. And so if you're setting a culture where there's no self-awareness, we can imagine the domino effect of that. But if we reverse that, there's a positive domino effect there as well.
Sure. Well, what types of businesses do you think benefit most from business coaching? I mean, I've heard you say, hey, I can help really small groups. And you just even mentioned here today that we work a lot of times with larger corporations. Like, do you have an ideal client that you like to work with, or is every organization different and they can all benefit from the services that you guys provide?
Yeah, well, I think, first of all, when you talk about people, like, people are businesses, right? So, that goes across the board. Like, we work with, realtors, we work with retail agents, we work with restaurants, There's a wide variety there. But I think a sweet spot is that mid-level where we have anywhere, from 20 to 50 employees, and perhaps not big enough to be able to bring on that HR person, and the business owner feels like they're drowning in a lot of ways. And so to be able to come in and help that business owner to be able to facilitate and coordinate and bring cohesion for the team is a huge passion of mine, because again, no business owner or leader should feel alone, right?
Sure.
So that I love to do that with that demographic and group of businesses.
Well, one of the things, like, I know that I've talked to you about before, and the networking group that we're a part of, there are a lot of small businesses out there that maybe just have one or two employees or a handful of employees that certainly can benefit from business coaching, right? And my thought is, and what we've talked about is overcoming obstacles, because with your background in the counseling, the therapy, a lot of times what's holding us back as realtors or any other small businesses, we set those goals for ourselves and then we don't achieve them. And a lot of people make excuses, like in our world, oh, the interest rates are high, or there's not enough houses for sale, or, I can't do that in my market. Yeah, you can sell 100 houses a year in Nashville or Miami or Seattle, but you can't do that in Toledo. And we create these imaginary boundaries that are excuses for us, right? So what do you do, or what kind of advice do you have for people that set those barriers or those blocks for themselves that's causing them to not be able to reach the goals that they set?
Yeah, well, first of all, as a realtor, I have so much empathy right now for the
well, thank
marketing.
you. At least somebody does, right? Somebody does.
Oh, the housing market has just been like a roller coaster the last several years. Of course, I don't need to tell you that, but it's funny that you asked me that, because we actually did a workshop last Friday, and I made myself sit down and I was like, okay, what are the top 10 things since 2008 that I have said as a behavioral therapist? Because I hear myself say things over and over, and also take them for myself. I'm not pointing fingers here, but these are the things that I say over and over. And I think the very top thing is this: what is in your control? If I could ask someone that, oftentimes we focus on things not in our control. And a lot of the things you just mentioned there aren't in our control.
Right,
we can't
for
control inventory of a housing market. We can't control interest rates, all of these things that most of us can't have any control over that. But what is in your control, what's not in your control? And we each get a certain amount of emotional energy, just like physical energy.
Okay.
And so why put emotional energy into things that we can't control? Instead, put your emotional energy into things that you can control. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And that's one of the things I talk to, newer agents or my team members about is there is so much, even if you just hang out in the office or you're out and about having coffee or lunch with people, there's so much negative chatter. There's so much negative noise. You have to block that out. Otherwise, it would just eat you alive. Like people will say, oh, how are you selling any houses in this market? Or what do you think is going to happen? Or when do you think the market's going to crash? Or when do you think the interest rates are going to go down? Or why are you a real estate agent? Like, it's so negative and negative and negative. And me, having done it for a while, I have that experience and I'm confident in what I do and how I do it. And I know that, like you mentioned, it's a roller coaster. There's ebbs and flows. There's good times. There's bad times. You just have to stick to your formula. You develop a formula for whatever it is you do in life and your career, but the negative noise is everywhere. And I can't imagine that's just for real estate agents. I'm sure that's everywhere. And you just have to find a way to block that out, right?
Absolutely. What we put in our ears is super key. And even what we speak, right? Complaining is the most powerless, that's a very victim mindset. So it's like, what's in your control? Yes, I love that.
Well, and I think that I like that you just brought up the victim mindset, because one of the things that, they talk to our leadership team at Danbury talks to us all the time about, don't be a victim. You can't sit around and complain and nobody likes somebody that's always complaining and blaming those circumstances. Like you just said, you can't control the interest rates. You can't control what the housing inventory is. So if you're going to complain about that, go do something else, because you can't control those things. You know what I mean? You have to find what you can control and figure out a way to overcome it, or you're not in the right profession, whatever that is, I guess.
Yes.
How do our mental blocks hold us back? How do we overcome those? How do we self-talk to motivate ourselves to reach our goals?
Yeah, so about 80%, and this is why I'm so passionate about mindset coaching, specifically in business and in leadership, is because a lot of the barriers, about 80% of our barriers in business, I mean, we have a plethora on the internet of skills and all of these things, but it's really mindset. And so how we perceive the world is how we respond to the world, right? So if we perceive a mountain, which is very much worst case scenario thinking, that's another barrier, then of course we're going to be climbing that mountain when really our perception might not be accurate, like what you've already talked about. And so I think with each barrier, again, you put the specific tools in place to go, okay, if I'm thinking about worst case scenario and that's what I'm seeing right now, what is the best case scenario?
Okay, I like that.
And so then we go best case scenario, and then we go, again, I don't know who has time to sit around and do all this, but these scientists I keep bringing up, right? 5%, they say 5% worst case scenario, 5% best case scenario. 90% of the time it falls somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
So recognizing that reality to move us forward, and progress starts today, right?
Sure. Well, it's funny that you bring that up, because I was going to ask you if you knew the stat. Like, I've heard a stat before that, and I don't know what the percentage is, but let's just say 80% of the stuff that we sit and worry about never happens.
Wow.
Like we sit there and we like, oh, what if this happens? What if that happens? What am I going to do if this person does this? What am I going to do if this happens to, my child or and most of it, the time that we occupy worrying about things that never even happens anyway.
It's true.
And
then all that emotional energy that we've wasted that we could be putting in our messaging or culture or whatever. Yeah.
And it's funny that you talked about that, because I've never heard it really framed up that way. We have only a certain amount of emotional energy. We all understand the personal or the physical energy, right? Like if you told me to go out and run a mile, I'm like, I don't know if I can do that, Christy, or I might get halfway done. I'm physically exhausted, but we don't think about the emotional side of it, right? The tank is only so full, and after you spend so much, it's empty. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. Right. Like, could I, go run a marathon? No, I'd have to train for that, and it'd still be
right.
Still be iffy. But we don't see emotional energy or mental energy, however you want to define that. And so we put it toward all these things, and it's like we're wasting our gas. It's like we're leaving the car running, but we're going nowhere, right?
I like that. So a lot of people are getting into their planning for the new year, and I don't know how you feel about New Year's resolutions, personal New Year's resolutions, but I've never bought into those. Like I feel like if you're gonna like make a commitment to do something, it has to be, you don't only do it on January 1st, like you can do it anytime during the year. Like, hey, I want to focus on fitness. I want to focus on nutrition. I want to focus on my business. I want to educate myself. I want to read more books. Like if you just like, oh, it's January 1st, so I'm going to start doing this, it seems like it fizzles out. My analogy is I hate January 1st when I go to the gym, because all the New Year's resolutioners are there, know, and then they fade out like after 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 5 weeks, they kind of thin out because they don't stick with it. But, and for those of us that go on a regular basis, you're like, oh, that person's on the machine I'm going to use. I know they've never been here before. How long are they going to be before they fade out of this New Year resolution?
That's right.
But because I hate being crowded at the gym. But anyway, that's a whole nother story. But as a lot of us are getting ready for our business planning or our career goal planning, I guess I should say, heading into the new year, like what should we be focusing on? What tidbit can you share for us and share for the listeners, that if you're going to like have one thing that everybody should be focusing on or thinking that they want to change or improve upon, if you can narrow it down to one, what should we all be incorporating into our plan for the new year?
Well, I think the drilling down is a super key component because, idealism inspires, realism achieves. And so it's like we can be like, I want to do this and this and this and have all these wishes. But if we haven't written it down, that it stays a wish.
Sure.
And so if we can write down our goals and then drill them down, how am I going to do this every month? What do I need to chunk out every month? And then drill it down farther. What do I need to chunk out every week or every day? What percentage of my time? How do I time block my schedule to do these things? I think that's very key. And of course, I'm a big fan of accountability, whether that's coaching, whether that's a friend, a colleague. And that's one of the things I love about our friendship. And I know we're colleagues mainly, but it's like that accountability. There's an accountability that's there that you're going to do what you say you're going to do, right?
Sure.
And so accountability, I think, is so key for those monthly, weekly, and even daily goals to break that down and to have success to move forward.
Well, I'm glad to hear you say that because I had a meeting with one of my team members last week, and we were talking about 2025 goals. And I said, how many units, how many houses do you want to sell next year? And we came up with a number, like what her goal was. And then I thought, well, it's nice to say a number, but let's make it more realistic. Okay. Where's that number going to come from? How many transactions do you think you can get from an open house? How many transactions do you think you can get from your social media? How many transactions can you get from your database, your sphere of influence? How many can you get from current people on your client list? And then when we did that, she's like, wow, I can get to that number now that we put it that way. Because if I get 2 or 3 from here and 2 or 3 from there, and you have 4 or 5 different ways that you can get that, it's a lot easier to get to 15 than just say, oh, I'm going to do 15 next year. Well, how are you going to do 15? So me, even being an uneducated business coach, was able to use that. So I think that goes a long way because even for me, like being in the business a longer period of time, like my goal is much higher than somebody that's new, but that gives me the idea that that's the right path. Like I need to set that goal, but then I need to drill down farther to how I'm going to get there. Because otherwise it's just a pie in the sky number if you have no plan to how to get to it, right?
Absolutely.
So
you want to join the team as a business coach? Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if I'm ready to be a business coach or not because I see like how much of an expert you are and how amazing you are at it. And I don't think I'm ready for that yet. But okay, so as we start to wrap up here, is there anything else that you want to share with us about business coaching?
Yeah, I think that my passion for business is, obviously it's the American dream, right? It's what America was founded on. It's why people come to America. I was just talking to someone who came here from Nigeria, and I love that people still capture that. Like you come to America for the American dream, have your business, build your business. And so what I love to do is see people succeed. And I think you broke it down great. Like, let's be realistic here. Let's set realistic goals. And I had a client this last year who actually this is crazy. She met her annual goal in March.
Oh, wow.
I know. I could not believe it. And, and so it's fun to have those surprises, but making sure when you set your goals, you're realistic because it's even funner to surpass that. Don't dumb it down, obviously, but surpass that. And so, super passionate about business coaching and would love to just help in any way that I can.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you one question real quick about that. So that client that you were talking about that reached their goal in March. So do you think that was the goal wasn't high enough, or do you think that they were just striving so hard to reach that goal that it happened quickly?
Yes, I think there's both. I think with this particular client, I was actually challenging her last week at our monthly roundtable. We were challenging her to have a higher goal for next year than she even said. So, I think that sometimes we have a fear of failure as humans. We all have that. And so we do set them low because it's like, oh, I don't want to fail.
Right.
And it can go one way or the other. Sometimes we set them so high, they're unrealistic, and then we feel like we did fail every year. But so that realism is so important.
Okay, good. Well, I appreciate you coming in today. Tell us how we get a hold of you. If somebody listens to this and like, hey, I really like Christy and what they are doing, and I think my business can benefit from that, how would they reach out and get in touch with you and EA Lewis and Associates?
Yeah, well, you can always email me, Christy, Christy, at ealewisassociates.com. Visit our website. I put stuff out on Facebook. So if you follow my page, Christy Austin, I put out a lot of tips on mindset and different things. So I would love to connect with you and see your business thrive.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming in today. Those people listening, Christy's amazing. If you are looking for some type of business coaching, she is definitely the person you want to get in touch with. So take that information that she just gave you for contact and reach out to her, and look forward to you guys doing some amazing things in 2025 with your business. Christy, thank you. I look forward to continuing to grow our business relationship, and I appreciate your expertise, and I appreciate you coming in today.
Yes, thank you, Jeremy.
All
what a
right.
joy.
Thank you for everybody listening to Real Life Realtor. We appreciate you tuning in today. Until next time, I hope you all have a great day. Thank you.